tilldeathinfo.com. First time for everything.
Woohoo! It's Dr. Ross.
And Kill at the same time. I know you're used to seeing us by ourselves, but we had a great time chopping it up about the 6 or 7 reasons, attributes you need that you should have to get married. And we thought for the 7th one that we should get together, chop it up together. It's actually going to be 2 parts because this is the part everybody's been asking about, the sex part. So the actual joint today is number 7. You are unwilling to be an active sexual partner with your spouse. In the scripture they're coming from is 1 Corinthians 7:3, where it says the husband shall fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. And then one of my personal favorite scriptures is 1 Corinthians 5, do not deprive each other, except perhaps by marital consent for a time, so that you may devote yourself to prayer. Then come together so that Satan will not tempt you for your lack of self-control. And I think a lot of people kind of front on that piece, but that's basically Paul schooling y'all that people need to have sex, and if you're not having sex,
All the time.
it's gonna be temptation out there. So nobody should be shocked. So men, if you're not giving your wife none, you should not be shocked.
And women, if you aren't giving your husband any, you shouldn't be shocked
when the temptation comes. Because so many times people are, oh my God, well, why? It's part of the game. So it's going to be a 2-day spot. And I'm going to let Roz go first, ladies first. We both came up with 3 things that we wanted to chop it up with y'all about. So we're going to give it to Roz first. She'll say the topic and we'll just kick it from there.
So the first thing is, Q, I wish married people would tell the truth that we are not having sex. Married people are not having sex like you think that we should. Sometimes people, often when I work with couples, months have gone by before they've been intimate. And if you aren't creating intimacy with your spouse, it leaves room to create intimacy with someone else. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I agree. It's a stereotype that once you get married, like the sex is on and popping. And I think the majority of marriages is kind of like the opposite. I think it always goes back to my philosophy where deep down inside, somewhere, some way, we know that having sex before marriage is wrong, and that creates a turn on for us. Then it's kind of like, okay, now you're married, you can get married now. You can have sex now, and it's like,
and now you don't want to have sex.
Right, because something about our human mind, when you tell us don't do something, the first thing we kind of try to figure out is how to get it done. And when people are having affairs, sometimes that sex is so hot and steamy, all based off of, I know this is wrong. I know I'm not supposed to be doing it. But then when you hook up with your jump off, some of that spark ain't there no more because, it's just a mental thing. So.
And that's the more reason why it is so passionate, because you weren't supposed to be doing it. So when you find yourself being caught up in these affairs, you're really doing more damage to your relationship. And it's interesting because I heard someone say, and I really had to ponder on this a bit, that having an affair makes it able for me to stay married to my spouse. Now, I found that to be crazy.
It makes sense.
It's
crazy.
When she explained it,
right?
She's like, my husband does everything that, a husband should do. We just don't have sex. He pays the bills. He's a provider. He's good with our children. He's a great man. But sexually, I am not fulfilled. He's tired, or sometimes she feels as if he doesn't desire her. So she's in a relationship with someone else so that she can stay married to her husband.
It's like selling drugs. Like, I don't understand why people do it, but then I do understand why people do it. So it's one of those things where, and it's the same thing I think a lot of times with men, when men say things, the infamous line of, we want a lady in the street, but a freak in the bed. You know what I'm saying? So
but that's not true with a wife.
What's that?
I have heard so many men say, I don't want to see my wife doing those things. It's okay for that one night stand.
You know what's funny? I just think none of these people are ever married. You know, it's always the person who you really find, I want a lady in the street and a freak in the bed, and the woman who's like, yeah, I want to be a woman in the street but a freak in the bed. It's always like the opposites that come together, you know, or the wife who's like, yo, I'm willing to do anything, just ask me for it, and it's the husband who's like, no,
I don't see my wife like that.
Do it like that. But then the man who's like, yo, do it. She's like, oh my God, I can't do it. You know, so it's always like that.
You know, and there's another issue. I hear a lot of married people saying, I shouldn't have to schedule sex. And I get that. You do want your sex to be spontaneous. You want it to be passionate, on and popping. But when you have kids, full-time jobs, and other responsibilities that get in the way, you've got to schedule that sex in.
Yeah, I think it's just like anything else. I think sex is just like sports. You know, as a rookie basketball player, you come to the league, you have all this speed, you have all this energy, and then as the time goes on, you kind of have to adapt your game. So now you're getting older, so you know you can be the player who looks back and says, okay, well, I don't want to change my game because this has been me. But the smart players are going to understand, for me to stay active in this league and to keep, you know, achieving at the level I'm achieving at, I'm going to have to switch some things around, because it's not going to be on and popping if you got kids.
No,
you know,
not.
You can't just, you know.
Not that I know, because I don't have kids.
Right, but I can tell you it's not going to be on and popping because you got kids and you got to wait for them to go to bed and different things like that. So, I mean, I think it's just, it's a gradual progression, but I think without the communication of sex, I think most people look at sex as it's something that's supposed to come natural. And it's not supposed to be something that we talk about. It's something that I see you, you see me, and then boom. It just happens. And anything other than that then starts to belittle what sex really is. And because we don't talk, nobody's really there to kind of say, you know, this is how you have to change. Your sex life isn't going to be like this forever. You know,
you got to work on it.
And if it is, it's going to scar your children, because, you know, your daughter's going to see you doing mommy in the kitchen. So at the end of the day, your sex life is going to have to change to some extent. Not saying it has to get bad, but it may come times when you do have to sit down and schedule it and things like that.
And that's not, I guess what I want people to understand is that that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because if you're scheduling sex, that means that you're interested in having sex with your partner.
Right.
Trust me. If you ain't having sex with your partner, somebody else will. Because we all have to get our needs met. I don't care who you are. We all feeling, I guess, having a libido, so that I can keep it proper. Having a libido, whether it's high, medium, low, we all have one. And if your libido doesn't match with your spouse, you're going to find a way to get your needs met. Whether you are asexual, meaning having sex with yourself, or finding someone else to... Well, yeah.
Did you make that up, or was that...
Probably.
Okay.
It sounded good, right?
It did.
So whether you're just having sex with yourself, or, you know, finding the UPS man or whatever, you do whatever you got to do to get your needs met. Whatever you got to do. So if your spouse is not willing to meet your needs after you have expressed, I need my needs met, because if you don't meet my needs, somebody else will. You know, you really can't be surprised when temptation comes in.
Just don't be shocked. Yeah. That's the part that kills me, when people are like shocked. Like, oh my God, how could he do this? How could she do this? I mean, it's just like almost being shocked. Like, oh my God, how did I get fired? I know I didn't come to work for 8 weeks straight, but how did I just get fired? Like, your boss is going to be like, come on, you ain't been here for 8 weeks. You really thought you were going to keep your job. So that's my biggest thing. You know, just, I think more people in marriages have to man up. Yeah. And that's for women too. I don't even say women up. Man up. And just take responsibility. Like, you played a part in what is going on. Yeah. And I know a lot of people, men and women, don't want to take that responsibility, because a lot of people feel like it doesn't matter whether I was giving it to you or not, or what was going on. You shouldn't have done that. Yeah. And I kind of feel like that's some old fantasy world that folk live in, because that's not life.
It's not.
There's
life.
Consequences for everything. And that's the thing. There are consequences for everything you do or you don't do.
Now, for some people, it may take them longer to get to that point of stepping out, but eventually, if you're not getting your needs met,
marriage is like dog years. Yeah. It may be 10 years, but eventually it's gonna happen. So, so what's your next joint?
So my next thing, and Kill and I, we disagree on this, but women think about and want sex just as much as men.
Cool.
Kill thinks that we want to have love making, but women like to. I mean, it's every girl's fantasy to be thrown up against the wall and to be ravished by her lover. It is. It's every girl's fantasy, and so when she does not get those things, I mean, everybody wants that. Who doesn't want to have passionate sex?
I don't know.
Yeah, everyone wants to have passionate sex. So my thing is, and I tell this to couples that I work with all the time, if your wife is not having sex with you, it's not that she doesn't want to have sex. It's just she don't want to have it with you. And the reason for that is because sex for women is emotional. It's an emotional connection. That's when we feel closest to our spouse. I mean, how much closer can you get to your spouse than physically having him inside of you? You know, so that's when we really, really feel the closest to ourselves. Did I just throw you off? Just then? Sorry, guys. I'm a little real when it comes to sex. I like this topic a lot. How much more closer can you get to your
You just want to say it twice?
to your spouse? Yeah, I want to say it twice. How much closer can you get to your spouse than to actually be intimate with them? And so when women have this intimacy or this connection with their spouse, it makes their world go round. I mean, they feel desire. So much is tied into it. So much emotionality is tied into it. Women begin to feel.
Is emotionality a word?
Yes, it is. That's a word. I didn't make that up. Women begin to feel as if their spouse desires them. You know, who wants to walk around thinking that their husband doesn't want them? You know, women need to hear, baby, you look good. Because if you're not telling her, somebody else is. Mm-hmm. And whatever you saw in her, don't think that Joe Blow don't see it out on the street.
Okay.
Because when she's on the street and somebody gives her the eye or whatever, she's going to turn up the notch if she's not getting it at home. Meaning she might put an extra switch in her step. She might bat her eyes. She may do the whole flirtatious thing if she's not getting what she needs at home. And I think that's another problem that we have in relationships. We stop flirting with each other. You know, we don't flirt with each other enough in relationships. It's like, once I have you, I got you. I don't have to do any extra work to be with you. And I guess this is my point 3. I don't have to do any extra work to be with you, but that's not necessarily true. Yeah.
You don't do no work. You don't put work
in. We don't put work in. We don't put work in, you know, and sex is like anything. If you want it to be great, you have to practice greatness. And so if you are not having sex,
you're not
practicing. You're not trying to get to the greater part of what your relationship could be. And when you're not doing that, then you're just, you know, having the space for somebody else to come in. And, you know, if a woman gets vulnerable, you never want a woman to have an affair. When she has an affair, it's emotional. It's not physical. It's very different for women. So if somebody else comes in and taps into that emotionality of the woman, it's going to be very hard for her to break away from that.
I agree with you.
Yeah, very hard.
Hard knock life and it's a cold day. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So Killa and I always say, you know, you can't send your man out there lonely. But I say, I mean, your man out there without, you know, horny. That's right. What you always say. But I say you can't send your woman out there lonely. You don't want a woman that's lonely.
I just think people have to get to the point of understanding, and it's my motto of life, is that you're going to pay now.
I'll pay later.
Or you're going to pay later.
Yeah.
And whenever you pay later, it's always going to be more than if you pay now. You pay your cable bill now, $200. You pay it late, it's $230. You know, it's going to be a late fee. So you either can pay now and give your spouse what they're asking for, or you can pay later when you're in divorce court. And now you got to pay lawyers and just explain to your kids why
child support.
Your mommy and daddy don't live together. And at the end of the day, I think most people who have probably been through a divorce, whether they want to admit it or not, would probably be able to say, man, if I could have changed one or two things, maybe I wouldn't have to be in this place. And man, if I could have just done X, Y, and Z like she had been asking for, we wouldn't be in this place. So, I mean, you're going to pay now or pay later. So that's part 1. Going to be back with part 2 in a hot minute with my 3 things, you know. So I can talk a little bit
guys.
more.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
Keep it locked, TillDeathInfo.com.